I'm going to fix the provided files in this audio. First thing that we know is that the piece has to be at 80 BPM, so I've changed that over here. So the first one is the choir audio file. Let's have a listen to it. Okay, and when I listen to it, I have the metronome on. That way I can hear if it's in time or if it's out of time. This is quite difficult to chop up at first. It might seem so because there's no clear transients. So we're going to have to listen and work out what to do. One of the tools that I want to use on this as well is I'm going to load up a metering tool called a tuner, just to see if anything's out of tune. Let me just decrease that and put it over here, and I'll just leave that open while I work. So Z to zoom in, and we can see first off loads of silence at the end and loads of silence at the start. That's a super easy thing to fix. Let's get rid of this. Okay, let's see if we start. Yep, we start straight away with a note. Nice, and in the tuner there we can see that we are actually slightly out of tune in some notes. So that will be something that we'll fix later on. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to chop up the notes so I can line them up to the grid and make them fit this 80 BPM. For that, what I'm going to need to do is listen and then press pause every time I get a different note. There we go, new note started here. So it's around here. I'm not going to bother finding the 0 point because I'm going to be applying fades to this. So I don't have to be so neat. Also, there's a bit of a crossover where you hear more than one note. And then we've got this reverb tail at the end. Let me use the waveform zoom. Okay, it definitely finishes by this point here. We shouldn't hear anything. Oh no, there's still a little bit of... There we go. Okay, we've got a tail all the way up to here. I'm going to fix that in a moment. Okay, so I've chopped up all the individual notes. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate my track, call this choir, and then what I'm going to start doing is finely editing these so that they start on their own bar. So option drag, mute the original audio, and let's just check that these work. Yeah, that's fine. Needs a little fade out. Put a tiny little fade at the beginning. That's one way of doing it. So increase that fade so it sounds more organic. Okay, and then I can stretch this so it lasts one whole bar. That was option, and then drag from the bottom right corner. Nice. Moving on to the second note, same process. Oh, I'm noticing that this isn't snapping to where I want it to, so Smart Tool, snap to absolute value. There we go. And now we're lining up the audio to the grid. Okay, and it doesn't quite start off properly there. So let's go in and edit that. Let's check this. No, it's still a little bit of the old note. That's better. Again, I need to do a fade on there, so I can do it from here. In the Eye Inspector region menu, there's a fade there. I can apply one there. Okay, similarly, I need a fade out. And then let's stretch that. Nice. Third note. Let's move on to the fourth note. Okay, and this one here should finish on the bar, but it doesn't. So two ways that we could go about fixing this. I could just chop it up, or I could just shrink it. I'm going to do that. Increase that fade so it sounds more like the others. Okay, and we can even change the type so it's more gradual. Okay, let's increase that fade a little bit more. One thing I'm noticing here is 18 minus 18. It does sound a little bit quieter here, so I could just up the gain so it's a bit more consistent of this region. Okay, so that's the long notes sorted out. Each note now lasts one bar. Yeah. Now let's open up that tuner again. See what we've got going on. Okay, so we're flat. I can go into the regions menu. There's two ways that I could do this. One is I can fine, so select this one and fine tune up. I don't know if this is going to work. Okay, that did work. Okay, let's have a listen to this one. Again, quite flat. It's okay that it deviates somewhat. I'm not aiming for it to be perfect. That would stop it sounding natural. Let's have a listen to this note. Again, a little bit flat. So this is one way I could do it. So I'm just looking roughly how much this is being used, and it's between 10 and 20, so I'm going to up it by 15 and then check again. That's weird. Why is it not playing? Because it shrunk it. Okay, so that's one method of doing this. I'm going to show you a different one if that's not working for you, which is a heck of a lot easier. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add an effect on here called pitch correction. And all this effect will do is it will figure out what note it should be and then apply correction. And it won't do it really fast, it will do it in, well, however fast you want it to. So this is a 1/10 of a second. It's giving me a B first, so I can turn that B off. That's having a bit of a weird effect on there. Because it is supposed to be a B note. Okay. neither of these work just by themselves. So let's go back to that transpose. Where we were, I think it was around there. Oh, Jesus. I've transposed it by 21 instead of fine tune. There we go. So that's that first part sorted out. Now, because choirs usually sing in multiple parts and they sing in open spaces, I'm going to be adding a bus to this, and I'm going to be placing a reverb. And I'm going to look for a large space, like a hall. Let's try this one. Okay, the other thing I'm going to be looking at is developing this choir part into multiple parts. So let's have a look. We have a C note here, then we have an E note. So let's move this E note down and layer it on top of the C note. What do we have? Nice. Okay, and then we have a B note. So we have a C, an E, and a B note. Let me duplicate that. And if I play them all together, it makes for some nice harmony. C, E, B means we are playing a C major 7 chord. It's missing a G. So if we wanted to, we could go create a G. So let me duplicate the E, because that one's the closest to a G note already. I'm just going to rename that as a G, get rid of the solo, and then listen to this. E, F, G. So we need to go up some tones. Okay, 3 semitones is the difference between E and G. And together we have these. And because choirs don't stand in the same spot, we can use some panning to widen them up. We could use any of these notes and transpose them to have access to any other notes. Up to you what you do with that. Other things you might want to try out, the wider plugin. So you could use this. It will increase the width of each of these mono recordings. There's also hash delays. So instead of using wider, you can go into delay, sample delay, mono to stereo, and then we'll just delay the right side by just a few milliseconds. I'm panning it to the right, so I need to delay the left. Up to you how you create your width. I put all of these in a group or a track stack. Easy to control and so on. Let's look at the last bit. So this is where we have some faster notes. So I'm just going to drag this down to here, get rid of the solo, and I'm going to work on this section here. All I'm going to do is make sure that everything lines up to the grid. In this section here, every note is worth 1/4 of a bar, or 1 beat. Let's stretch. All, apply some fades. Fade out. Obviously the gaps in the silence will be covered up. Stacking the notes. And then we could glue this together and then place this at the end whenever we want to finish this. That doesn't work. Maybe put a little crossfade on there. Yeah, so now if I just drag this across, These two will crossfade. And we have that natural reverb. I want to show you a really cool technique that you can use for your choir. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to duplicate this area here. What I want to show you is how to use a noise gate to get the choir to sing a rhythm. What I need to do is I need to first off create a rhythm, and what I'm going to do for that is just open up a software instrument and draw a rhythm in. I'm just going to draw in a very simple rhythm. And as I said, the notes are not important because we're never going to hear them. Select the notes and I'm going to shrink them. What we've got is this. Notes don't matter, it's just the rhythm. We're now going to get the choir to listen to the rhythm and sing it back. So first off, let's make sure that this isn't going anywhere. It's currently going to bus 5, turn that off, bus 4, turn that off, and it's going to stereo out. We're going to send it to no output, so now we can't hear it. What's the point of having an instrument that you can't hear? Because something else will listen to it. Go to my sum stack here. Add a noise gate. And I'm going to sidechain the classic electric piano, not heard, also known as a ghost track. So I'm going to say sidechain the instrument, not heard. So now the sidechain will listen to the not heard instrument. I'm going to place it on ducker mode. And there we can hear that it has applied a rhythm to the choir. It is a bit choppy, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to play with the envelope section, the attack and the release. If I want to play a different rhythm, I can just program a different rhythm in. I'm going to quantize to 8th notes. I could do quarter notes. If we want slightly different rhythm or longer notes, we can. I think this is an excellent way of developing long held out notes. Alright, let's have a look at the harmonica audio file. Let's chop that off. Let's make a duplicate track where we can put any mistakes. You never know, we might be able to use them for something. That sounds like a kick to me. Let's get rid of it from the original. Just going to put some chops if I hear a different idea. Okay. That's definitely a mistake. So let's get rid of that. There's no way they gave us a harmonica because they actually want to hear that horrible sound. We've got a potential kick and a snare here. Cut that out, paste it on. Yeah, we can edit these to do whatever we want. Make sure that we'll, yeah, there we go. Let's add the tiniest fade here. Line it up to the grid line. Copy, paste, paste, paste. We've got a bit of clipping on this limiter, and I'm going to make sure the output level comes down. Let's get rid of anything below 30. Got a bump here, 200. Let's see if we can boost. create some separation between the thump and the slappy part of it. Let's add some reverb to it to give it a bit of depth. We'll look for a slap, small space, plated reverb, drum plate. Could use this for a snare, could use it for some shakers. Let's have a look at what we've got here. It's more of a shaker than it is a hi-hat. It doesn't seem to have any tonal elements. Okay, let's see if we can create a little shaker rhythm out of this. So I've selected one bar, looped one bar, and I'm only working with this bar here. And make sure everything lines up to the 16th grid. Line up everything to the grid. Let's get rid of those for now. Let's go back to working on that harmonica. Okay, let's fix this. So it goes da 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 da. So it repeats this part here at the end, but he's coughing over it. So let's just chop this back off. Place it underneath so we can get the timing right. I want the transients to look similar. So I've lined up the first ones, and then let's just make some room for this. Okay, that works. Let's glue it together. Doesn't necessarily line up with the grid. It's not too far off. I think this might actually work if I line this up properly. So what I'm doing is I'm getting these transients to line up. Each one belongs in its own little bar. I've got the starting point. Load this into a sampler. And then we could draw MIDI. Next instrument. Let's work on the drum kit. When we drag this file in, it's called drums, but when you put it into Logic, it defaults to setting it to a piano. The key giveaway here is the note C1. If you see something repeatedly play C1, it's probably a drum kit, because C1 is the first note of most software instruments. First thing then, open up the library, change it to a drum kit. We have to listen to this and figure out what the hell is it. I hear two different parts, an introduction element, then we have a second part of this. I'm just going to chop that up for now, which is the same groove underneath but with some hi-hats. And then we have this. Yeah, this element here. Okay, and then we go back to this. And then some dramatic bit at the end. Okay, fix these one by one. First one, drag it down, make sure it lasts 2 bars. This way everything fits to the grid. Double click on it, let's have a look. Is everything in time? I think everything is in time. But if we're not sure, select the note, hit key for quantize, oops, quantized it to a quarter note. Quantize back to 16th, and now we have this. which is fine. A bit boring. You can play around with the velocities of these notes. The brief says it's for walking. Let's make beats 1 and 3 stronger than the other 2 beats. Give it more of a drive. And then we could even transpose some of these snares to hand claps. Copy these over so every single time we hear it, there's some slight variation to it. So we could start with the hand claps, then move on to the snares. We don't even have to have it on a drum kit. We can change the instruments altogether and try out orchestral percussion, orchestral kit. If we zoom in, we can see lots of different elements here. So C1 is a snare, but we can put on a bass drum. Now the second section, which I've got, is bar 3. Let's just move this out of the way for now. Again, I'm going to make sure that this is 1 bar long. We start speeding up at this point here. This could be quantized, but I believe it is a 16th note triplet. Yeah, that's, see, it perfectly subdivides this 2 beats into 3 beats. And then we've got this repetition here, these 2 elements here. Let's have a listen to this last part. Let's copy this across. Yeah, we can create something like that. Could even change the velocity of this. Again, I'm going to select these notes here and then draw a ramp. Now all I'm doing when I'm doing editing is listening out for patterns, trying to create a pattern. And adding some variation and just making sure everything lines up to the grid. So the only thing that doesn't line up to the grid is this, because it's actually on a 16th note triplet grid. You could start with that, you could modify it however you want. Let's try modifying this to something else. No reason why we can't make it tom fill. It's up to you. Do whatever you like. Just make sure it lines up to the grid. Let's look at the next element. This really reminds me of Figure It Out. So it's a 2-bar phrase, so I'm just going to work on the first bar. Okay, and it's out of time, so let's fix that. Drag everything. Go back to 16th note. Again, once this is corrected, you could transpose any of these parts to any other parts. I would mark out strong beats. Beats 1, 2, 3, 4. Especially 1 and 2 with higher velocities. Then let's have a look at the next section. Okay, that's just the same as this part here. So I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, let's fix this. We're going to be working in a bar. Let's loop the bar. Let's have a look at this bar. First off, let's line up that first beat. Is it 16th notes or is this a 16th note triplet? Let's try it. 16th note triplet. quite dramatic. So if I want to view 16th note triplets, I can actually do that. Custom view, and then say there we go. I can now change the grid to 24ths. You could just have this as an ending. Yeah, there we go, done. Fix that. And then all we have to do is line up this last note to whatever we want. Let's go back to a 16th note so we can line up everything else. Okay, so that's the drum part fixed into little bars, little loopable sections. So we can loop these, change the instrumentation of it, do whatever you like. Let's look at the next instrument, the tabla. What's wrong with this? Well, it doesn't start correctly. That's better. We've got some clipping here. Let's try and see if we can fix that. Let's go back to regular view. Let's double click on that. Let's get the smart tempo working, telling us what tempo this is. Analyze again. It says it's 86.7. Well, that's really close to our 80. So we just need to slow it down a little bit. Let's try the most simple process. Region, flex and follow, yes, and align bars and beats. Let's put a loop on and the metronome on. That works absolutely fine. Very easy to do. I'm just going to chop this off here and get rid of all of this silence, which there's no reason for it to be there. Tiny little fade at the end. What else can we do with this? Well, we can split it off into separate elements. That way we can EQ them all independently. It shouldn't be too hard or take too long to do. They aren't necessarily on the grid. Some parts are, some parts aren't. So we could go ahead and fix that further. I'm noticing a DC offset in this, which is quite unique. I don't normally see this. Dynamics, adaptive limiter, and it has a remove DC offset. That's how you go about doing it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to split these elements off. Just moving everything with a small sample in the middle, anything with a low bass wave like that one, and leaving the larger, snappier transients at the top. And now we can go and EQ them separately if we want to. Now, if I want to copy this and reuse it, and just Command C, place the playhead exactly where it was, Command V. If I want to remove that element, I can now really easily. Let's move on to the last part, the harp. Why have they given me this file here if it has lots of distortion? There's two ways that you could go about fixing this. Could use it to load into a sampler instrument. Let's address that horrible clipping sound at the end. Let's put fade on there. Right, let's look at the audio file, see what we've got. Okay, dynamically we can see we're all over the place. It's also a mono file, so I'm going to be looking at getting that into stereo. Got some distortion here. Okay, what I'm going to do first off is just do some manual gaining. So look at the end as well. Okay, it ends with a clip. A little pop. Let's just cut that here. Put a fade on. Bring this back a little bit. Check that that works. Nice. And now let's open up the inspector. Sort out the gain. Balance this out a little bit. This is very loud. Let's bring that down. Let's try and see if we can hide some of that distortion with some EQ, high pass and low pass. Try a shallow high cut. Get some reverb on there. Let's reduce some of that dry element, have it more wet. Let's EQ the output of that as well. It's not perfect, but it's better than it was before. Try compressing this as well. So have it fast compression. That's hidden it. Let's glue this together. And now let's try and see if we can retime this. Why don't we include the tabla? Let's get rid of you. Line this up. That kind of works. Now that I've selected the parts of the harp that I want to use. I'm just going to go accurately retime it a little bit more, and all I'm going to aim to do is get the strong transients to actually line up to a 16th note. So let's zoom into the first bar, and that first one lines up to the first 16th. This last one lines up to a 16th. So if the others don't match up too closely, that's fine, as long as the strong ones are doing that. That's what we're aiming for. Okay, we can see here we're starting late, so let's go edit this. Let's move these back. Nice. Let's move on to the next bar. First off, let's swat out the starting of this one. Let's move it back. Yeah, it's not bad at all. That lands in the right place. Let's drop this off. Can move this one back a little bit. And let's move on to the last bar. So I'm going to select top bar, line up, first beat, and let's have a listen. Okay, this one here is a little bit late. These two are also slightly off. That one's good. Let's tidy this one up so it finishes in the right place. Not a fan of where that first note is, so I'm just going to do a little edit here. Move it back a beat. Whoops. Okay, there's a little pop there. Oh yeah, there it is. Let's shrink that. Okay, done.